folks, what's up? Welcome back, another Pokemon Master video, and finally got our Eevee grid, the last of the summonable 5-star. So hopefully after this, we should be getting, some of the free-to-play units that haven't got their Sync Grid expanded yet, like Sylveon, Hapu, Nanu. What was the other one? Charon, right? So that's cool. But yeah, as for Eevee's grid. She has a decent grid, right? She does have a decent grid. And she's a good unit overall. On paper at least, right? But she does have like some team comp issues, which we'll talk about in a bit, right? So starting off, let's first talk about Sync Grid and stuff, right? In terms of lucky skills, probably Vigilance, right? Because she's not a fantastic tank. But she's not bad either. I mean, like, look at these, like, good HP stat, great defensive stats, right? Then your sync move could potentially max out both your defenses after, like, 9 turns. But, there's that. And then potion, obviously, you could heal yourself, which is nice. So if you want to tank with the Eevee, you could definitely do that, right? With Vigilance, it's pretty similar to Skyla, except you don't have the defense buffs until 6 turns later. But in terms of stats, it's pretty similar to Skyla stat wise, and then again you do have the potion, so you could definitely tank with her. If you don't want to tank with her, you could run something like a defense crush if you're running her with like a lot of physical units, or I guess fast track as well, give her beat speed. But there really isn't too much to really give her, so Vigilance is probably the best option over here, honestly. As for, unless you want to go like Iron Tail DPS, which is not a good idea. But that aside, right? Let's get to the Sync Grid, right? So at 1 out of 5, you really have like basically nothing. There really isn't no difference in between Leaf having a grid and not having grid at 1 out of 5. So just like pick up everything, right? Pick up everything. You could literally pick up everything and still have like 9 energy left, right? At 2 out of 5, I can't believe I still have to keep saying that because people ask. I've seen more people ask me about 1 out of 5 grids than like 2 out of 5 grids. Anyways, 2 out of 5. So 2 out of 5, you do have some stuff. You do have like a potion NPR, and you have like Stoic on tackle, which is actually not terrible because like even though you do buff defenses on your sync, right? The reason why I say like tackle and Stoic's not bad because Eevee, unlike other supports, you don't do anything else outside of syncing, right? And using an occasional potion, because your trainer move is like basically worthless. I wouldn't say it's worthless, but it's not very great, right? So for the first 3 turns, you will basically just be tackling, which is something that most supports don't do. So you could actually pick up some defenses with Stoic, right? So it's not a terrible pickup, right? Over here, probably want to pick up tackle staggering 2, get some 30% chance of flinch on your tackles, and then you get whatever. I think it's friend mend or something. I don't even know. 9, so it turns your potion into a potion plus full heal, I guess. So there's that. Outside of that, there really isn't much. I guess you could go for NPR and Let's Go, so you kind of like a move gauge boost NPR, I guess. And then outside of that, just pick up some defensive nodes, right, here and there. Except you, well, you know what, there's some HP for 4. There we go, that perfect. So something like this, right? For your 2 out of 5 Eevee. As for 3 out of 5 Eevee, that's where the real Eevee grid is at, right? 1 out of 5, 2 out of 5 really doesn't really give you anything much, right? 2 out of 5 gives you some stuff, but most of your stuff is behind 3 out of 5, which I'd assume a lot of you guys would have, because like Eevee's been in the game for like a very long time, so in general pool as well, so I'd assume a decent amount of you guys would have 3 out of 5 Eevee, at least 3 out of 5 Eevee, maybe even 5 out of 5, 4 out of 5. But yeah, as for this grid, personally, what I do like to go for is something like this, right? You pick up recuperation because you will be syncing with Eevee. If you're not syncing with Eevee, why are you even using Eevee, right? Because the big thing about Eevee is, when you sync, you get +2 to all these stats, right? So you have to sync with Eevee, and why not get some HP back while you're syncing, right? So that's why I pick up recuperation here. If you are fighting a stage that does have a lot of status condition stuff, maybe you could drop that for like friend mend over here, but like, yeah, again, this is very just depends on the stage, right? But outside of that, if you don't really have any issues with that, recuperation here is obviously nice. Then tackle move gauge refresh 9, so every time you use tackle you get a gauge back, which basically like this is basically like a Skyla grid minus or plus your recuperation, heal and sync. This is basically a Skyla grid, right? MGR 9 on a 1 gauge move, staggering on your 1 gauge move. Then you got Master Healer 2, Potion MP Refresh 2, Potion MP Refresh 2. It's basically just Skyla's grid, which is good because Skyla's good, right? So outside of that, there really aren't like any like too interesting builds. Again, status, you could pick up that. But like outside of this, I mean, if you want to do something with Let's Go with Barricade Buddies, it's only like +1 per use though. I mean, unless you get like an MP for thing, you get like 3, and then you sync, then you're at +5. If you're using it for like a teammate that has like Smart Cookie or something, right? The more your special defense raise, more powers up your moves, which there are a few units with that, right? In some like niche scenarios, you could maybe do this, right? And still have the potion stuff, and then have like 5 left over for some stats. But outside of that, there really isn't much interesting stuff here. I mean, I guess running with a physical unit, don't care about flinches, you go pick up the Iron Tail stuff instead. But that's also costing you like recuperation. Plus, it's a 3 gauge move instead of a 1 gauge move that gives you a gauge back instead, right? So I'd honestly just favor this over Iron Tail on a roll, right? Which, you know, with on a roll, you do give a decent chance to debuff the defenses, but again, it depends on your team. If your team's fast enough, then you could go for that. If it's not fast enough, then you probably still want to go for a tackle instead. If you want like an Iron Tail DPS build, don't do it. But if you really want to, I guess you can. Something like this, right? If you have any like big attack buff notes, no, she does not, unfortunately. Okay. Yeah, I do not recommend. But if you really want to, I guess you could do something like that. But yeah, again, the most standard one is just probably this, right? Which is pretty standard, right? So anyways, now that we got the easy stuff done with, here comes the hard part. Where do you even use Eevee, right? And here's the issue. Like, what does Eevee even do for your team that another support doesn't, make it easier, right? Because here's the thing with Eevee. Eevee is called a support, but Eevee has no support moves at all outside of the sync, right? Okay, you give some gauges on your trade move, but like outside of that, in terms of like offensive stuff, right? You do have potions, which is great, right? But you just don't give anything offensively. And when you're running supports, unless you're running and here's the issue, right? Because like you either want a unit that gives you a great offensive buffer like a Sabrina or Hilbert, or you get a tank, right? Like a Torterra or Steelix or Comfy or whatever, right? Eevee is trying to be a bit of both and is just not great at either, because as an offensive support, she's very, very, very slow to buff the offenses, right? And you have to sync, so there's always that opportunity cost, right? So unless like your Eevee's like a 6-star EX, which also gives you the extra benefit of giving the support EX, which is great, right? It's hard to justify syncing with her because again, she's only giving you +2. So unless the best case scenario, in my opinion, for using Eevee would be with units that have, and there's a decent amount of units with this, right? That could buff their own crit and but can't max out their special attack or physical attack. They can only give it to +4. If it's like some unit that can only get like to +2, you could still do that, but it's just extra slow because you need 2 sync cycles with Eevee to max out their against physical or special attack, which is a bit of an issue, right? So, units like Olivia, who has X attack, which obviously you can only use it twice. So that's only +4. She maxes out her own crit, obviously. I think Eviltal does that too. X special attack and then max crit trainer move. What else? Kingdra doesn't max her crit. It's +2, but she's also, X special attack kind of unit, right? Again, you don't have to do it with units that max out their crit. Obviously, you could then bring another crit buffer on the other side to max that out. But then again, your team overall, damage up, it's not going to be very nice. And a lot of times, units like, for example, Kingdra, right? If you're running like Kingdra with Eevee and like another crit buffer, your Kingdra is going to do no damage, right? Because Kingdra, if you want to do damage with Kingdra, you need to paralyze the opponent. You need someone on your team to paralyze, and please don't tell me you're going to try to paralyze with Dragon Breath. And then you need someone to set Rain. So like your optimal option over there is just give Kingdra the MP refresh on the trainer move, and then bring Eevee, and then bring a Rain setter, maybe? But then again, you can't paralyze there, right? So, issues, right? Issues. But then again, that's more on Kingdra than it's on Eevee, right? That's more on Kingdra than it's on Eevee, because Kingdra is very hard setup, right? Maybe something like Jiggly Lyra as well, right? Jiggly Lyra has what? If I remember, max crit, but +1 on both. But Lyra does kind of need both because your main damaging move is play rough, and then your sync move is special. On the other hand, you will be syncing with Eevee most of the time, so maybe you don't need the special because you won't be syncing because you have to sync with Eevee, right? Yeah, +1/+1. Yeah, this is just the tough part. Like, if you look at Eevee, on paper, she looks like a fantastic unit. It's just hard to run her on teams that could utilize her potential, right? Which is slightly awkward. Some other great things that you could do, right, is something like a you can run her with Musharna, right? Because stored power is based on how many stat buffs you have. Obviously, it caps, but the more you get, or at least the one sync with Eevee definitely helps a lot with getting to that cap very fast, right? Musharna or Pekka, right? With power trip, Will with stored power, like these stored power trip units, they could help, I guess, right, as well, which would be nice. Eevee still, I wouldn't say nice in co-op. Eevee's still okay-ish in co-op, right? Because of Benefactor, you get that, but like the issue is like in co-op, it takes forever to get to your sync, right? Driftbloom is just a much better option at that point. Let's see what else we could run Eevee with. It's just in general units that need like a lot of stat buffs. Like you could run Eevee. Like there's these amount of tech units that, although a lot of tech units, you kind of want to sync nuke with them, so you can't. Again, like it's the awkward part about Eevee, right? Like she's good, but how are you gonna use her, right? There aren't that wide range of units that could really utilize her that great. And then there are a lot of restrictions, right? It's going to be hard to run Eevee with, say, a Mega Pokemon, right? Because you need to sync with the Mega 80% of the time, right? Hard to run her with, like, a Sync Nuker. Like, again, if it's, like, a 6-star EX, you just do it, like, the first round. And if the first sync gets you enough, then you're fine with a Sync Nuker, honestly, right? I mean, a lot of, like, the top-tier Sync Nukers, you need to sync with them on the first sync to one-shot master mode opponents, but a lot of them they only get going into like the second sync, so you could do that. It's just hard to like really find a place for her. Thankfully, Champion Stadium does exist, so like if you run out of options, she could be like a secondary or third or fourth option to run on your team, because again she does have a lot of great things. It's just that, again, hard to fit on teams, a lot of other supports are probably, you know, more effective at this point. But it's Leaf, and Leaf is very, very good, and cool, and I like Leaf. But anyways, that's me. This one, I guess. Hope you guys enjoy. Let me guys think in the comments down below. Like and enjoy this video. So I'm gonna channel for some more Pull Masters content. I'll see you guys in the next one.